The simplest one thing that you can do to make sure you change that engagement level in your team is by having clear and consistent development conversations with the people on your team. Poor employee engagement is costing the US economy $1.9 trillion a year. Yeah, trillion with a T. If you are a business leader or a manager of any kind, you really need to understand where this number is coming from so that you can help your team and your organization do better. Hello, if this is your first time on the show, my name is Matt Gjertsen. I am a former Air Force instructor pilot. I used to be the head of training and development at SpaceX, and now I run my own leadership development consultancy called Better Everyday Studios, where we help great engineers become great managers. You know, when I first saw the research from Gallup saying that engagement of your employees was costing the economy this much money, I was skeptical too. So I wanted to dive into it, and I want to bring you along with me. In this episode today, we're going to talk about three major components. First, we're going to talk about what the research from Google is saying so that you can understand where that number is coming from. When I first heard that $1.9 trillion figure, I will admit I was skeptical too, and so I wanted to dive into the research that was coming out of Gallup. And so I thought today I would take you along with me so that you can understand this number, figure out what it means for your organization, and then of course figure out how to fix it. We're going to talk about this in three main parts. First, we're going to look at what the research from Gallup is saying. Then we're going to break it apart of what this really means within your teams, and then finally talk about a solution. So first, what does the research say? Well, Gallup is an organization that has been doing research for years, decades actually. For over 20 years, they've been studying employee engagement, and that means they have a lot of data to back up this assertion. They have data from over 100 million employees in over 100,000 organizations. And they track very specifically what employee engagement is, which they define, I'm going to read it to you straight just to make sure I don't get their definition wrong. Employees who are highly involved in and enthusiastic about their work and workplace. They drive performance and innovation and move the organization forward. I think we've all seen employees like that. If you're a manager, you know who those people on your team now are right now. I bet names are coming to your head right away when I read you that statement. But we also know people who we wouldn't necessarily classify as engaged. So if you look at all the research that Gallup has been doing and the latest research that came out this year in 2025, what they found is that within the United States, employee engagement is actually at a 10-year low. Approximately 31% of employees are classified as engaged, so less than 1/3 of the workforce is engaged. And probably the most startling factor, the most worrisome fact, is that 17% of employees are actively disengaged. So if engaged employees are those ones who are really excited, they're coming to work, they're trying to be productive, they're trying to solve problems, they feel deeply connected to the business, then you have a broad swath of people who are not engaged. They're there. They're doing the work. If you tell them what to do, they'll do it, but they're not really excited about moving things forward. And then this actively disengaged piece is the most worrisome part, because those are the people that are actively trying to drain resources from your business. They kind of take energy from other people, and they're actually getting in the way of those most effective people. So that's really what this is, what this means, what the research is saying. What does this mean on your team? What does this look like? I think there's three main buckets of why people end up being disengaged that also comes out of this research. The first is because people don't feel valued. And I think this often comes back to managers, because managers are the ones who are most directly connected with their workers. And so I know when I first became a manager, I was just very focused on the work, on the tasks at hand. When we had one-on-ones, we would sit down and say, okay, what are the to-do lists for this week? What are you trying to get done? And if you're a naturally high performing person, if you're naturally very highly motivated, maybe you just came in and you were one of those highly engaged people, then sometimes it can seem like that's all you need to do. Let's just focus on the work and let's get it done. But for the people who are in the middle, for the people who are maybe a little less engaged, certainly the people who are actively disengaged, they need a little bit more to spur them on. And if you're just focused on the tasks, it's easy for somebody to come in and say like, well, this is great, but you don't ever ask questions about me. You don't care about me as a person. And so why should I care about you as my manager or the business as a whole? That lack of feeling valued is one of the top reasons why people fail to be engaged within their organization. The second most common reason is honestly that people just don't know what to do. Maybe they're motivated and excited, but they don't have a clear understanding of how what they are doing, the tasks that they're assigned, what their role is, how it kind of rolls up into the larger mission of the company. And so they have a hard time really understanding what needs to get done. I think both for high performers, but certainly for managers, as managers move up in the organization, you get exposed to more and more information. You have more and more context for what's going on. And it can be easy for you to forget, oh, wait, the people on my team, they don't necessarily have that context. And so when you see things happening or when tasks get dumped on your team, it might be really easy for you to prioritize because of all that context that you have. But if you as a manager are not providing context to your team, well, then it's not as easy for them to figure out what to do. And they don't know what to do. They don't know how what they're doing connects to the business. And so again, if they don't have some natural excitement, they're just naturally going to pull back because they don't see how they fit into the bigger picture. And then the final common reason that comes out of the research is people feel like they don't have a clear development path. Again, if you are a manager who normally has people come in for your one-on-ones, you're like, okay, what are the tasks that you have to do? What are the blockers? Let me solve them. Let's move this forward. You're very now oriented. Then an employee is going to be like, okay, this is great, but like, what about tomorrow? What about next week? But what about next year? Where am I going with my career? I think one of the challenges of today that every manager that I know, every HR professional that I know struggles with is that, usually within 3 to 4 months of hiring a new person, especially if this is their first role, they're asking like, when are they going to get a promotion? And this is interesting. I come from the military where we would often sit in a role for years and years. You knew exactly when you were going to get promoted. I think I was a captain for 5 years, and because that's just like how it works. And so, and then you think about other more established companies from decades past where you would maybe have a role for a decade before you would expect a promotion. And just the reality is that in today's world, people really, really want to feel like they are moving forward. And if they don't feel like they're moving forward, then they're going to start to get disillusioned. And so if they don't feel like you care about them and they aren't really sure what to do, if they don't know how those things are going to get fixed or how they're at least going to get taken care of by moving forward to their next role, again, they're going to become disengaged. So the research says that those are the 3 most common reasons that people become disengaged. So now the question is, if you are a manager, how can you fix it? The good news is, though this can seem kind of broad sweeping, there's one simple thing that if you are a manager and you're worried about a lack of engagement on your team or you're trying to improve engagement on your team, there's one simple thing that you can do again and again, you have to do it several times in order to improve engagement, and that is simply having clear and regular development conversations. What do I mean by a development conversation? So the first part of a development conversation, this is going to be like a relationship. The conversation is going to change over time. In order to have an effective development conversation, the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what the person on your team cares about and connect that with the business or with the team goals. What are they trying to do in their career? Where do they want to be in 5 years? Where do they want to be in 1 year? What are they hoping to accomplish in this company? You have to get some kind of understanding of the direction they're trying to go so that you are clearly showing that you care about them. And then through caring about them, you're going to help them create kind of a development path. So each one of these steps of a development conversation, they do several things to combat those problems with engagement or those reasons why people become disengaged. And so we want to tackle them from as many ways as possible. And so the first thing you're doing is figuring out what they care about, and then, because this is still a business, figuring out how to connect what they care about to the broader team goals or business goals. Once you have that clear story that you can tell of, really it's a reason why they're a member of your team, why they fit well, why they should be in this organization. Now you have a clear path to say, okay, this is where you're trying to go over the next year, 5 years in this organization or on this team. Here's something that you can do in the next 3 to 6 months in order to take you in that direction. So you're going to lay out very clear goals that they can achieve, that you can ask them about, that you can help them with. And that's the third thing that you're going to do. After you set out what that clear goal is, you're going to regularly ask them, how are those goals going? What can I do to support you? How can I remove blockers from you? So this transforms your one-on-ones in a couple ways. I think one, at least once a month, you want to be having formal development conversations where you're saying, okay, for this week, we're going to be talking about your development goals and this is going to be a development conversation. And in the beginning, you're going to be working really hard to identify those things about them, what they care about, connect with the business, what are the goals going to be. So there's a lot of planning kind of early on. And then in the later development conversations, it's just kind of checking up of like, does this still make sense? Is this still going on? Are we still going down the right path? Do you still want these things based on what you've learned over the last few months? And the great thing about this is and by goals, I don't mean disconnected goals, for just personal development. It's merging their goals with the needs of the team and the organization. And so now every one-on-one, even if you do just come in and focus on the task list and blockers, those are going to be connected to their development because you've set clear goals for them that they're trying to achieve and you're helping them achieve that are also it's part of their role. It's helping the team succeed. And so if you do this, you realize that if you have these development conversations, what are you doing? By asking them what they care about, you're clearly showing that you care about them. You want to know what the things that they are trying to achieve with their life, with their career, or maybe just the next couple years are, this phase of their career are. You're clearly showing that you care about them. And so that's the first thing, right? That was a reason why people became disengaged. We're clearly telling them what to do. So there's a clear focus of how what they're doing is going to impact themselves, it's going to impact the team, it's going to impact the company. And then finally, you're creating this development path so they feel like they are moving forward, right? $1.9 trillion is a massive number. It works out to something like I think the research says $2,450 per employee. It's easy to understand like how this happens, right? Why this cost is so high. If you have employees that are disengaged, it's going to decrease your productivity. It's going to decrease your innovation. It's going to decrease your profitability. Your team members are more likely to leave. Retention issues mean that you have to spend more money replacing them. They take all of this corporate knowledge with them every time they leave. It's actually, when you think about it, not that hard to understand how poor engagement of your employees is going to cost a lot of money for your organization. And so now that you know what it costs and how those costs add up, why people become disengaged, it's on you as a business leader, as a manager in your organization, to solve that problem for your team. The simplest one thing that you can do to make sure you change that engagement level in your team is by having clear and consistent development conversations with the people on your team. I hope you found this helpful. If it was, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. And by the way, if you happen to be somebody who is responsible for leadership development in your organization, and maybe it's not your whole organization, maybe it's just a department, you want to work on engagement for a specific team, I would love for you to reach out to me to see if we can help you out. You can reach out at at bettereverydaystudios.com so we can figure out what we need to make the managers in your organization better. With that, I'll see you on the next episode of the Leadership Launchpad.